Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the SoCal Prep Report. I'm Rich Estrella, and tonight I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Bob Gibson. Bob, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, happy to be here, and nothing better than football season. Love talking high school football.
Here we go again. And what's great about living in Southern California is you're always in the national hunt. And this last basketball season, where we pretty much left off, the CIF Southern Section Finals and the state playoffs were pretty much the national playoffs for the national championship. And it was great. This year in football season, we kind of got the same thing. Got a lot of teams ranked nationally in the top 10, and we start off with the modern-day Monarchs, a team you're familiar with, being that you work for the network over there.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Modern Day is the top team, and not only in Southern California, in the state, but in the nation. I mean, they're ranked number one by almost everybody that does a poll. We have number one here, of course, and no reason not to, because from top to bottom, there is not a better team or more talented team in the nation. You won't find it.
Well, it was an interesting matchup with Gorman last week because Gorman played the week before, played the number 5 team in the country, whacked them, went up to number 2, and then played the Monarchs, who jumped up over Bosco. And it was a great game, but I was surprised at the ease at which the Monarchs in the second half just pulled away.
Well, what's fun is, don't forget a year ago when we saw Centennial and IMG go into that overtime thing, right? So we've seen all the great teams come to Southern California, IMG Academy and Bishop Gorman and Modern Day and Centennial.
Wait a minute, is IMG Academy even a real high school?
Well,
or is that just, a
it's
football,
a football factory?
It's a football, all right, call it what it was.
Let's just call it what it is, right? It's a football factory. It's a school, but it's a football factory, and they just have player after player come out of there. And that was a fun game with Centennial a year ago. Yeah. But you never know when you see teams like that clash. Modern Day really made a statement. Really, it really wasn't, much of a game. Bishop Gorman wasn't in it for very long. Modern Day really showed why they're the class.
But Gorman,
No, Gorman's a top program. There's no doubt about it.
Every year, we're talking about Gorman in Nevada, one of the powerhouses in the nation every year. What I like is the playoff system now, because everybody has state playoffs now. Everybody wants to know who a national champion is. Prior to that, it's pretty much mythical. And it's pretty much mythical now in a way, but at least you're not naming some school that didn't at least play in the state playoff and name them a national champion. You got to play.
But that's what's great. Everybody's playing everybody now. You see St. John Bosco in Hawaii playing one of their top teams. As you take a look at the national top 10 right here, look at this.
We'll get to it.
Bosco, Centennial, IMG, Modern Day. All these teams are playing each other now. Whether somebody's coming here or they're flying out there to play them, nationwide now, you have teams playing one another. So you really can be able to say, hey, you know what? We do know who a national champion is, because these teams are matching up. And to the winner, as the old saying goes the spoils. Yeah. And right now, Modern Day has every reason to say they're the top team in the nation.
Well, again, after the way they dismantled Gorman last week. And don't forget, they still got to go through the Trinity League gauntlet. We've mentioned they still got to play Bosco. They're on their schedule. It's another top 10 team still, as we see Bosco number 4. They didn't drop far by losing to St. Thomas the week before.
Yeah, no, that's a tough loss. Flying out and playing that game. That's a tough one. We see Chaminade Poly, rounds out the top 10, and Mission Viejo
25,
25. Bob Johnson over at Mission Viejo. He's always going to have one of those top programs. Certainly one of the top ones in Orange County. But when you talk about teams in Southern California, it all begins with the Trinity League. And you think it's just Modern Day, it's just Bosco. It's not. Servite, Orange Lutheran. Jay Sarah's 3-0. Jay Sarah's putting up 40, 50 points on everybody so far.
Every new school in Orange County, once they get the neighborhood built, man, they seem to do well.
Well, and I'll tell you the difference has been the coaches that are coming in.
Right.
Rich Fisher, Santa Margarita. Santa Margarita's undefeated so far.
Right.
You got.
Harvey Welch isn't there anymore?
No. He's not there anymore. Harry's not there. Harvey.
That's funny. Trust us, that broadcast.
It is funny, right?
She called him Harvey Welch the whole game.
That's an inside joke from way back.
Definitely.
J.P. Presley at Orange Lutheran. His hire there has been great. Pat Harlow, the former offensive lineman at USC and for the New England Patriots, has taken Jay Sarah now to new heights. So you're not seeing really the neighborhood coach come into those Trinity League schools anymore. That's not going to happen. The last one, Santa Margarita tried it with the guy from Northwood. That really didn't work out for Santa Margarita. Now you're seeing the schools in Trinity go on national searches to find these coaches to build these big-time programs. And you're not going to see a bad team in the Trinity League. The last place team in the Trinity will beat anybody else in Southern California. I can almost guarantee that.
The last
That's how crazy it is. Whoever finishes last in that league.
You got a point.
And it may just be Jay Sarah will still beat 80% of the teams.
Yeah, no.
Maybe not Centennial or a Sarah, but that team is still going to make the playoffs and be a great team.
enough about the Trinity League. I'm sick of them already. I'm sick of you guys. You're going to be talking about you guys all season long. Because the national champion, or at least the hunt, will go through there. Bosco's still not out of it. You know,
not by any means.
You can lose a game and still win this thing. You just got to win the rest of them. You got to be impressive about doing it.
They're the defending
well.
state champions still.
Absolutely, they are the defending state champions. All right, if you don't mind, guys, let's take a look at the CIF Southern Section Top 10. We've already had a little sneak peek at it, but me and Bob want to talk about it a little bit and let you guys know who are so far is going to be the cream of the crop, shall we say? And let's take a look. And no surprise, we have Mater Dei in the top spot, Bob.
Well, we talked so much about Mater Dei, but let's go beyond Mater Dei.
Hey, what makes them so good? What's the deal with these guys?
I tell you what it is there's not a weakness on the team, even down to the special teams. They have the best place kicker. They have the best punter. I mean, everything they got. Of course, like anything else, it's all about transfers. And they got a couple in the defensive line this year. The middle linebacker came in, and really, it's about the lines. We talk about line play.
Right.
Offensive line and defensive line play will win these games for Mater Dei every time because now you're giving JT Daniels and his receiving core all the time in the world to score points, and it's going to be silly as we get into it.
And of course, the common denominator all these years has been Bruce Rawlinson.
It really has, and Bruce Rawlinson has put together that program. And been the unifying force there, that rock at Mater Dei, and he's just kept that thing going year after year.
Now, the number 2 we were looking at a second ago was Corona Centennial, and you got to give Matt Logan a lot of credit. This guy gets a lot of athletes, but he's not in an area where you're going to have it like L.A. out here, or Orange County, where there's no borders. You know what I mean? You just go get your guys. Out there, he's pretty much relegated to the Corona area, Norco area. Probably gets a lot of those kids, but he runs a top-notch program. He took IMG Academy last year. They lost by 1 point in overtime last year. 1 point.
It's the last of the neighborhood public schools where you really have kids who live in a neighborhood with one another in that Corona. Now, Corona's a big town. A lot of kids, go in there, but that's still one of the last public schools that's going to be on this list. Pauley is kind of that way as well a little bit, but Pauley's been Pauley over the years. They will always be good, but Bosco's a private school. Chaminade is a private school. These are all going to be private schools for the most part on this top 10 list.
In the top 5, it's 2 public, 1 private, and let's not forget Pauley. Pauley is one of the biggest public schools in Southern California. I don't think there's a school with a population larger than the size it's like a small city. They got like 6,000 students in one high school.
Well, you forget Long Beach is a humongous town.
Your average school has about 2,000 students in it, on the average here in the Southern California area. I know in some of the outlying areas, you got like 80 people in your graduating class and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with it. We're not laughing about it.
It takes 4 hours for a Long Beach Poly graduating class to walk.
Absolutely.
That's how many kids go to that school.
But
here's where it really
has 2 campuses now, by the way. They had to split it up.
Right.
There's too many people.
It's just crazy. Here's where it gets interesting, 6 through 10. Look at how many Trinity League schools we still have here. Orange Lutheran, J. Sarah, Servite, all in that top 10. Sarah, right in the middle, one of the L.A. County schools.
Gardena, small one.
Nice to see Sarah get in there, and we know all the great wide receivers that have come through Sarah and are in the NFL now.
What's up with Servite now getting in your top 10 here, Bob?
Here's the thing about Servite now. Servite is the last team that took the former coach at Corona Del Mar and installed him as the head coach. Now, what did he do? He took the offense from Corona Centennial, went over with Matt Logan, studied the offense, and now incorporated that into what he's doing. Now Servite is throwing the ball around, running the ball like crazy, just putting up crazy offensive numbers like they do at Corona Centennial. So Servite said, we got to change some things up. We got to do something different here in order to compete with the Mater Deis and the St. John Boscos. And I think that's a great move by Servite, and I think they're going to be well served for it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. It's been a long time since you've been able to trust that Servite. A lot of times these rankings, the voters go on reputation, and rightly so at times, but it's been a while since I've been able to trust the Servite in the top 10.
Well, you have to go back to the Cody Fajardo years back in 2011, I think, when they played Edison at Angel Stadium for the CIF title. I think that's how far you have to go back before. But when you can talk about a Servite team, that was relevant, don't forget they went through a couple of coaching changes over at Servite, and now they like what they have over there with Scott Meyer, as I mentioned, the former coach from Corona Del Mar, who won a couple of CIF titles over there at that small school. Now getting his chance to show what he can do at a bigger school like Servite.
Now, you look at this top 10, Bob, of course, a lot of national powers. This is loaded with them. I mean, there's no question. Can anybody crack this? And who's out there that can crack this? I mean, is it San Clemente able to crack it?
Yeah, San Clemente.
Is Santa Margarita out of it altogether?
Santa Margarita's definitely not out of it.
I mean, there's a lot of coaching changes, and when the coaches change, the landscape changes, and it changes quickly, it changes rapidly. You have to watch it. So
well, and what's going to happen, and especially the Trinity League, we hate, I hate to keep talking about the Trinity
you
League.
got to talk about it right.
But they will,
Bob. Get the poison out.
They will dictate what the top 10 looks like. Because
They are.
as soon as they start knocking each other off, however the dominoes end up falling, maybe a Servite loses a couple in a row. They're going to fall out of that top 10. Now we see somebody else, San Clemente, as you mentioned, or somebody bump up a couple. Narbonne's had a decent start to their season. There's some good schools out there that say, hey, we deserve to be in that top 10.
Yeah. The problem is with the voters, oftentimes, and we've done this before too, but they always, if you lose, they're going to drop you, and that shouldn't be right. If you look at the competition level of what you're playing, in other words, if Mater Dei beats you by a touchdown and you're in Division 8, that's a victory for you.
Right.
I mean, it really is. So you have to look at the full body of work and what they're doing, and in order to make the right decision in terms of the rankings go. The rankings are great because, you want to be in the top 4 because you want to have the number 1 seed. You want to play the last team coming in, the number 16 seed. You don't want to be playing the number 2. So you really want to, the rankings do matter as it gets down towards the end of the season.
It's so true. I mean, I called the Mater Dei Bishop Amat game to start the season. Now, Mater Dei won the game handily, but, Bishop Amat made a good showing for themselves. Had played as well as they could play against a national number 1 Mater Dei team. So, at the end of that, I kept saying, hey, Bishop Amat is going to be a much better team this year, and they're going to show up well in league play. And I think that's going to happen because you could see how good Bishop Amat, how much better they are.
Right.
It's against Mater. They're never going to beat Mater Dei, this Mater Dei team. It's not going to happen. But the way they played against him and hung in there, that showed me that a team like Amat is back.
I want to know also what's going on with Chaminade right now. They're in Sierra Canyon. Remember those guys? They pop up, they go down, and all of a sudden everybody's high on Chaminade. They're a top 10 team. Nationwide.
Right. Now you see a program like Chaminade, and that's the thing. You're right that the tide turns, as it goes, and it kind of ebbs and flows. But it's tough to keep a school, like that to, kind of relevant all the time. You got to have that crop of players rolling in all the time. Easy to do it when you're in the Trinity because you say, hey, we're the Trinity League, right? You come to Bosco, come to Mater Dei. You're going to get all those kids transferring in. Not as easy at a place like Chaminade. It's kind of off the beaten path. You're trying to get kids to come there. But, where they might excel.
Small school, too.
It is a small school. Where they might excel, a lot like a Charter Oak, too, which Charter Oak, out in the IE, had that big, or not in the IE, I'm sorry, in the
it's San Gabriel Valley.
San Gabriel Valley area, right. Some other small school, and they saw that big influx of kids come in, and then they had their run. So, when you can see a coach bring in a group of players like that, that's when they're going to have their run, and Chaminade's on that cycle right now.
It does bounce. Well, I'm excited about seeing how this is all going to met out because, again, with so many teams in the national picture this year, that's telling me something, Bob. The talent level's being spread out more. It's not just being going to one school or two schools as we oftentimes we see in football. These teams get hot. What happens is they get hot, everybody starts going there, and pretty soon your third-string tackle could start anywhere, is sitting on the bench. And they get tired of this, and it goes with all positions when you have a lot of success.
And it's so true, and that's part of the reason why you see even Mater Dei had a couple of kids transfer out of Mater Dei because they're not going to get a chance to play there. One kid was a starter last year. Now he's at Servite. So you're going to see where kids kind of bounce around because they're seeing somebody come in, take their spot. Hey, they're going to go somewhere else where they can get an opportunity. And these are the headaches that the CIF Southern Section office has to deal with year in and year out now because what did someone tell me? There were 7,000 transfers in this past year?
Yeah, I mean
7,000.
Well, 1,000 alone. We're over there at Calabasas High, right? Isn't that what's going on over there?
That's probably not far off, right?
I mean, let's face it. Listen, everybody, when there's smoke, there's fire. And if your high school has 17 transfers in one season, that's a lot of smoke and a lot of fire.
Something's going on.
Yeah, you're lucky to get one. If you're a regular high school, you're lucky if you get one transfer that'll help your program. But when you got schools out there that have done nothing for a million years, all of a sudden they get a new coach, and they got 36 transfers, I think Calabasas had, or whatever it is, or whatever. It's out in that area.
Right.
But whatever school it was. But anyways, they had a ton of transfers.
Kardashian area.
Yeah, all in 2 years, and nothing's going on, Everybody likes the water out here, so it's just interesting.
This is the state for football now. Texas used to be the state. California is certainly the state for football these days.
Hold on, are we breaking? Are we taking a break before we talk to Randy? No? Are we going to go right through it?
All right.
What do you know?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's go right now. We, of course, every week, Randy Rosenblum is going to bring you something from the city section. I don't know what he's going to bring, but He should wrap it up. Maybe we'll get a wrap up of the city section and find out what's going on. This week, he interviewed a player and a coach. Let's go ahead and go to Randy.
On SoCal Prep Report, we're at Birmingham High School in the heart of the San Fernando Valley in Lake Balboa. And there's a renaissance going on with the football program. A changing look to Birmingham Stadium. Patriots always a power in the West Valley, coached by Jim Rose. But Coach, let's talk about this stadium. First and foremost, a lot of changes. It's being refurbished. I look up at that scoreboard, and it's gorgeous.
It's getting done. They've done the scoreboard so far. They've refurbished the press box, as you can see, and hopefully in the next month or so, they'll be breaking ground on a turf field, which is somewhat organic, supposed to be cooler than the normal turf. They're going to be game clocks in each end zone. You're going to be redoing the bleachers. So it's going to be a great looking place, better than it is now.
Well, I still think it's the best place in the San Fernando Valley, even before the changes in terms of a stadium for prep football. On the scoreboard, what are we going to see there on a nightly basis when there's a game?
Yeah, well, you're going to see hopefully us scoring more points than the other team.
I mean, in terms of new video boards and things of that nature.
Yeah, this scoreboard has capability of showing the kids pictures after they make a big play or whatnot. They can have their picture up there, and people could rent the scoreboard during the game. I mean, so it's just an up-to-date 2017 scoreboard, not 1963.
I love it. The stadium itself is not going to be enlarged. You're going to still be at 10,000 despite the seating change, correct?
Yeah, it seats roughly 10,000, and that's not going to change. They're just changing the wood out with metal, and well, that's better because nobody's going to fall through metal.
I would predict that you're correct. You know, I'm looking over at Joe's Place, and that's famous around here. It's got great eats for all the students and the athletes here on campus. You didn't do anything to Joe's Place, did you?
No, they just painted it up, spruced it up a little bit, but same old Joe's Place, same old food.
Same old good food. Let's talk about your football team. All Southern Section opponents in the non-league. Some losses there, but some good, close losses to the likes of a Notre Dame, of Sherman Oaks. I know you're getting prepared for the West Valley. What do you see from the 2017 Patriots?
I think we're improving. We improved Notre Dame week well over our first game, and so I think tonight's going to be another test for us, and our goal is to keep getting better and get ready for league and then city playoffs.
You have an all-city wide receiver who plays in your secondary, number 4, Marcus Moran. Tell us a little bit about him.
He's probably our toughest player. He plays almost every down. Sometimes I have to calm him down a little bit because he's such a competitor, but you know that's not always a bad thing.
When you look at your football team, I think of the great years, and some of those players are going to be honored here tonight before you play LaSalle. Your 2007, 2002, 2003, and 4, all these championship teams. As you look back 2006, you were an assistant coach on that. How far out is the program now to being like it used to be?
I think it's just different. It's a different realm with all the private schools now. Back then, they hadn't taken over. So our goal is to be the best in the city. So we don't have to compete against them in league, but we want to play the best teams we can in non-league. That's why we play them.
After tonight, you had played Notre Dame here last week and LaSalle tonight. No more home games. What's it going to be like for your Pats to be on the road every week?
I couldn't tell you. We've never done it before. So it's possible that we could end up playing 11, 12 games on the road in a row. That would be real interesting. But we'll be well tested and ready for the road in the playoffs if we have to be on it.
Jim, I know you're the favorite in the West Valley. Best of luck in league play.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that's Jim Rose, head coach at Birmingham. Let's go back into the studio and Rich Estrella.
All right, let's move on, and we're going to take a look at the national picture. And Bob, we've already talked about Mater Dei being number 1 this week. We started out with they and Bosco. Bosco now number 3. This is the CIF top 10. We want to go national picture. And the national picture, it's still going to have Mater Dei at the top.
Right, Mater Dei still be the top.
IMG Academy is the real deal. Basically, it's not a school to learn. It's a school to learn about sports, all right? So you want to play softball, go to IMG. You want to play football, go to IMG. You're all going to be in the NFL. You're all going to be in World Team Tennis. You know, you're all going to be in the Olympics.
There it is, right
So here we go with IMG Academy. That's they in Florida. They're still ranked number 2. I still think Mater Dei beat them. St. Thomas Aquinas of Florida, Bob. All these Florida schools. I think in the top 10 there was like 4 Florida schools, 4 California schools,
right,
and 1 school from like Pacoima or something, man.
Look at this top 5. Mater Dei, Bosco, Centennial. Huh?
Yep.
3 of the top 5 teams.
Yeah, and 2 are in
right
one
here in our
league.
backyard.
You got 2 in just one league, and that's just That's
crazy.
just wrong, Bob.
When
That's
Modern
wrong.
Day and Bosco tangle, it's just going to be crazy.
If they're
because-
both undefeated the rest of the way, which
Right.
for Bosco would be
right,
something.
Bosco's got the one loss.
Centennial, we talked about the anomaly here because they're the only non-recruiting school, so to speak.
Right.
Modern Day is a parochial school. IMG Academy is worse than a parochial school. Aquinas is also a parochial school. So is Bosco. The only public school.
Yeah.
And let's go down to the bottom
Amazing
half
what
now.
Matt Logan's. You mentioned it before. What Matt Logan has done there.
Yeah, it's the offense
An
he's put in,
amazing
the
job.
defense he's put in, the kids buy into the system. And whenever you can get your local product, your local kids to stay home and do what these guys are doing is just amazing. American Heritage, another Florida school, followed by Grayson, Georgia, Chaminade here from L.A., Bingham, Utah.
Yeah, they're big school in Utah.
Utah.
Utah is a state that's really come on in the past couple of
they
years.
have.
Utah has really built some big football powerhouses nationwide. So don't think Utah's some soft state out there. This is football territory turning into Utah. And of course, Poly coming in at number 10. And what can we say about Poly every year? They just get good athletes every
Right.
year. Some of the top kids, and they always end up in college, and they always end up in the NFL, and that's just Poly.
5 of the top 10 schools currently ranked, and this is from an aggregate. This is looking at several different publications that rank the national teams. And you've got 5 of the top 10 coming from California, SoCal. And this is where we hang out, man. This is where you get to see games. So if you're not doing nothing, go out and see a game. If you have anybody that you need to see, a particular student, go watch a game, man. It's an honest effort. Good stuff.
And that's not just us at Prep Report saying that. That's everybody nationwide saying those are the top teams.
Here's the matches for this week we want to
Yeah.
talk about. It's Bergen Catholic and Modern Day. Bob, I know you got your eyes on this game. You got to do some broadcasting on it. What do we got here?
Well, Modern Day, of course, and Bergen Catholic's one of those teams that could easily be in that top 10, nationwide. They're a top 15, top 20 school regardless. They play in that super red league, or what do they call it,
Yeah.
in New Jersey. Don Bosco is
Don
also
Bosco,
out there in
yep.
that, and they're also a nationally ranked program as well. But Bergen Catholic's already got one loss on their record this year. I see Modern Day rolling pretty easy in this one, actually.
Well, if they don't, I'd be surprised. And now, they had a pair of brothers last year, wide receivers. They only got one of them graduated.
Right, one graduated.
UCLA, or where'd he go?
Or to Notre Dame.
Okay.
Aquaminius St. Brown
Okay,
over at Notre Dame. And Amon-Ra St. Brown actually hasn't even played this year. That's how good Modern Day is. Their top receiver coming back hasn't even played this year. 3
Yeah,
weeks in,
I know.
he hadn't even played. He's been nursing an injury. We don't know what
Wow.
it is. But he's been out. He's supposed to play in this Bergen Catholic game. Coach Rollinson told me this is the one they're pointing towards.
All right, interesting matchup. We'll see what happens. I'm sure Modern Day, like you say, will have won another ball game and moving on to the national championship, hopefully, right, guys? All right, moving on. Servite's taking on Villa Park this week. This is another matchup coming to you from the Trinity League. We talked a little bit about Servite, why they're so good. Dusan Ansich, the head coach over at Villa Park, is a great coach. He came from a small Catholic school, so playing Servite's not going to be anything new for him to prepare for.
Well, and you for Dusan Ansich, I mean, to grow up at the foot of his father, the legendary Marion Ansich. Of course, he's going to turn into a great coach, right? And he's taken that Villa Park program. Who heard of Villa Park before he got there, right?
Yep.
Not a very good program. He's taken them, and they're actually a very good football team. Not going to be able to compete with Servite though this year. We talked about how good Servite is, but I think Villa Park will be okay in this one. But Servite should get an easy win here.
All right, now here's this next game is one that has a lot of tradition behind it, even though you wouldn't think so. And we're talking about Long Beach Poly taking on Mission Viejo this week. Now, Bob Johnson's kind of a brash dude, when he wins and when he's coaching. And they had that little reality thing they did, Fourth and Forever. And Johnson was just very, very nasty. And the following year, Poly came back, paid him back the favor, winning 55-0 in a game. And now here they're at it again. Johnson's still there. And, of course, Antonio Pierce is still coaching at Poly, so we'll see what happens here.
Correct. And,
This will be a good one.
Oh, this is always good. These are two top, programs in Southern California. Mission Viejo would love nothing more than to go into Vet Stadium and win on Poly's home field. I don't know, though. I think Poly's just too fast, too athletic. I see Poly winning this one.
All right. Well, it's going to be interesting. The last 2 years, they've split.
Yeah.
The last 2 times they played, they've split.
This will be the rubber matchup, I guess.
So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this one. But this is a very good ball game. We have nothing else to do tomorrow, on Friday.
Right.
You go here and see this game.
Get out to Vet Stadium.
Right.
It's going to be a good game.
Out to Vets. $5 for parking, by the way. All right, let's continue on. See the next ball game we're checking out. San Pedro and Downey. You've got city section going up against southern section. I'll tell you, anybody that hasn't been out to Downey High School, it's an old high school, over 100 years old, but you wouldn't know it by now. The earthquakes keep knocking that school down, chipping away at it. It looks totally redone, totally brand new, and their stadium looks like a college stadium. For people coming in from San Pedro, you're going to be in for a treat to play in a stadium like this.
I love these are the kind of matchups I'd love to see now. City section against Southern section. You never saw that years ago. You never saw the sections mix. It was a very rare thing to see it.
Right.
Now they play each other all the time. It's great. I love when these kind of matchups happen.
That'll be a great ball game. Let's continue on, have a look, and a couple more games to look at. And I don't want to jump it, but here you got Warren and Lakewood. The reason we got Warren here because it's a Downey thing. There's only 2 high schools in Downey. One's Warren, one's Downey. When Warren and Downey play, they have to play at Cerritos College because the whole city comes out. 12,000 seats sold out. They are playing Lakewood, another Moore League opponent. Lakewood, another school that's huge, 5,000 students in that school, man. It's crazy how big these schools are out here in the Southern California area. But these two teams know each other. They're almost bordering cities. Bob, this will be a good game. Those of you that know Raul Lara, the former head coach at Long Beach Poly, he's now the head coach at Warren High School. They're doing pretty good right now. All right, take a look we have one more matchup there. I believe we do. No, maybe we don't. I think we're going to have to talk about Centennial, I believe it was, Bob. Let me look at my phone. I send messages back and forth. Yeah, it's Centennial against Narbonne.
Right. And I think that's an interesting matchup. I don't think Narbonne is going to win this football game.
You don't?
We're
on,
talking
Bob.
about Centennial here. But Narbonne's got themselves a heck of a program over there. We know that. Narbonne is always, if not the top city team, one of the top 2 or 3 every single year. Narbonne, just always represents well. It's a tough matchup, but I like seeing an LA City section team going up against the cream of the crop, a nationally ranked Corona Centennial team. And that helps a team like Narbonne later on in the season. It helps them to look at that kind of competition.
Bob, they might give them fits. You know how these things work.
Oh.
It's never like we say. It's always something else.
Don't forget a couple years ago when Narbonne wiped the floor with Long Beach Poly and everybody went, what? What do you mean? Poly went on to win a CIF title that year as they came all the way back and turned it around. But you're right. A Narbonne team could come up, rise up. Wouldn't that be the upset of the year, though?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I don't think it's going to happen. I think Narbonne's hurting right now, and Centennial's looking pretty good. I mean, you can't measure the ING Academy game. I mean, you can measure it because they're one of the best teams in the country, bar none. Again, the students that go, they're student athletes. They're not students first.
If you go down to a game where both teams score 60 points apiece and it's a 2-point conversion and win it at the end, you can't even say you lost that game.
No.
Everybody wins in that kind of a matchup.
No.
Look at we had another game up there, but.
Well, we had highlights from the Mission Viejo game. They took on La Habra this past weekend. And again, that's a measuring stick for both those schools. It was a tight contest. Mission Viejo finally came out, I think it was 41-27 or something like that. Here's some of the highlights from the game here as we will take you out. But the Highlanders, from La Habra, testing themselves early by not ducking some of the best. And we're looking at the number 25 team in the country right now in Mission Viejo. So look at the fans just having a good time out there. That's what high school football is all about, baby. Just fun, baby.
We'll talk about coaching legacies, over at La Habra.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mazzotta's got like eight
right.
CIF championships.
Absolutely, and again, you mentioned it. He's not going to duck anybody.
No.
He's going to take his team and he's going to pit them up against any other team in Southern California.
Absolutely.
And La Habra is another one. It's just been a great program over the years.
I love it. That's why you got to love high school football right there.
Frank Mazzotta is just one of the coolest guys, and he always just has a good football team. It doesn't matter.
Great football family. His dad's the head coach at Cerritos College, one of the winningest collegiate coaches in America right now.
Of all time, right.
All right, thanks a lot, Bob. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
On behalf of Bob Gibson, I'm Richard Estrella saying so long from your friends here at the SoCal Prep Report. Join us next week.